All right, welcome to Clear Vision Wednesday. I am Claudia Mühlenweg. I'm the creator of the Natural Clear Vision Method. I'm all about natural vision improvement, but today we want to talk about the opposite. We want to talk about LASIK. And before we get into this, please subscribe to my channel. It helps me to create more content uh, because you're supporting me. More people hear about it, more people see the videos. This makes all the difference in the world. So please subscribe and click the little bell icon because we go live every week and sometimes more often. And then you get notified when we get live and you're not going to miss any episode. So today's show, and if you're watching live, make sure you take some notes. I won't have slides. So this is all about hearing and listening. We have some statistics and some data to go over. So LASIK. Obviously, let's explain what this is. LASIK is one form of so-called refractive surgery. And when we look at this on my little eyeball here, there's other surgeries called PRK and LASIK with an E, but they all affect the cornea. So here's the cornea. This is the cornea of the eye. So it's the outermost layer of the eye that will be affected by these surgeries. And LASIK stands for, I have to read this, situ keratomiliosis. It's a mouthful. PRK stands for photorefractive keratoctectomy, and then LASIK stands for laser epithelial keratomiliosis. So basically, it's epithelial; it's a layer on the cornea, and in some cases, it's they make a flap on the cornea, and basically, imagine this: when you are nearsighted, your eyeball is too long, right? So what they do, they shave some stuff off the cornea to make it flatter to help your nearsightedness. If you're farsighted, your eyeball is too short and they make the cornea steeper. So they make it more steep, like instead of flat. So that's kind of the gist of it. There's also ability to do astigmatism, and we will look more into these different things. Know this: over 500,000 Americans get this surgery every year. It costs about $5,000. And we will go over success rate and outcomes in a moment. But it's an elective surgery. So insurance doesn't cover this. It's something that is called cosmetic elective surgery. So it's not something that is done like a cataract lens replacement surgery, which is like based on a necessity. You get an eye disease and your vision gets blurry. So I looked up because I didn't even know what kind of ranges. So I could not find any data on the difference between, so basically refractive errors, which is again related to the cornea and the lens. So how is the light that comes in refracted, like think of a prism, through the cornea and the lens and gets projected back on the in the back of the eye to the retina, right? So LASIK is all about, or any of these other surgeries, it's about refractive surgery, which is addressing nearsightedness, myopia, farsightedness called hyperopia, as well as astigmatism, right? So those are the three refractive errors, and they can correct up to -12 myopia, which is a very high level, but most surgeries don't go so high. -12 myopia means your blur begins right here, right very close to your nose. With hyperopia or farsightedness, they can correct up to 6 diopters, even though most surgeons wouldn't touch more than 4. In terms of farsightedness, +4. And with astigmatism, it can also be around 6 diopters tops. Then also they look at your cornea. Is your cornea thick enough? Because when you do a flap or when you shave things off your cornea, that will obviously thin the cornea, which can also be a risk when you have glaucoma and the eye pressure goes up. So basically, not everybody will be what they call a candidate for surgery. So that's very important to know that that might not be the right thing for you to do. Um, Basically, they are also looked up with hyperopia, especially farsightedness. So farsighted meaning you can see better in the distance than up close. The greater amount of the correction that is done, there's a greater risk of regression, meaning it getting worse again, and post-operative problems. But the newest lasers have been getting better than the old ones that were, created before like 2000 or the early stages of LASIK. Um, so let's talk a little bit about, they also look at that the prescription has been stable for the last year. In all my programs and in all my free content, I always talk about how vision varies because our eyesight, our visual acuity varies on the state of our nervous system. And that could be related to physical, emotional, mental challenges. If you were ever sick, if you just had a car accident or you had a severe event in your life, your vision when you're in that sympathetic nervous system state will be worse. Your pupils dilate, your peripheral vision goes down. So in other words, everybody's vision fluctuates a little bit throughout the day, even. Like maybe it's better in the morning, worse in the evening. So when they mean stable prescription, it doesn't mean like crazy jumps, but just know that everybody's vision can vary roughly about half a diopter, quarter diopter, half a diopter. So our vision is not a frozen static state. When they mean with prescription, they mean like no like crazy changes in your vision. So that's one thing that is important. Um, so the most people that I talk to that come to me, either I meet them and they tell me they had LASIK, they're super happy, or people that come to me because they have problems after LASIK. Most of them, I actually never had anybody who had it for farsightedness. So I think, again, I couldn't look up statistics, but majority of people that get LASIK have nearsightedness. In other words, they need their glasses for distance vision, which is really, as humans, it's affecting our life more than anything, right? When we can't see the distance, yes, when we are reading and we have to put glasses on, that's annoying. But like if you can't drive, if you can't play water sports, if you can't go to parties or whatever, and you can't see the distance, that's more life affecting for probably for most people. So from my personal experience, again, don't know the exact number. I would say most people that get LASIK have nearsightedness. So when I look at the outcomes, like what are the statistics? And this is where it gets a little interesting. So they said 99% of people that get the surgery get at least 20/40 vision, which on the eye chart means that's the legal limit for driving. So 20/40 is not perfect vision. About 90% get 20/20 vision, and then some, and 50% of people with LASIK get better than 20/20 vision, which is with glasses, we would call it overcorrection. With natural clear vision, obviously 20/10 eagle vision is great. But when it comes to surgical correction, there's also a lot of negative things. You might sound that sounds great, and we will talk about why that might not be ideal. But about 90%, get what they want within one diopter of the actual visual correction that's measured. So they use a laser, so it's within one diopter. So they don't guarantee the exact correction. So they might overcorrect you or undercorrect you. You don't really know, or they might right hit the mark at 20/20. So let me see, I'm just looking. And this is about measured at about 3 to 12 months after the surgery. With PRK, the numbers are only 89%. In LASIK with an E, it's 92% of getting into that target mark. Let's see, I'm looking at my notes because I couldn't remember all these statistics. Um, Success rate can be slightly higher for lower myopia than high myopia. So for high myopia, it might only be 71% success. For low myopia, it's like I said, the 90%. But about up to 10% of people that get LASIK do not get 20/20 vision. They get lower, and they might want to do a touch up. But remember, this is one thing that I want everybody to know. LASIK is an irreversible cut into your cornea. So they're cutting into your cornea, and it's like a tattoo that you cannot remove. So whatever prescription they always say engraved onto your eyes is something that's going to be prominently there. And maybe if you currently wear glasses, you like to take them off. If you're nearsighted, you can probably read without glasses and you would take them off. And when you have the LASIK, it's like you have contact lenses in at all times with that single distance prescription for distance if you're nearsighted. There's also about 1% of people that have, there's been several stories. I can link to the article. There was a news anchor, there was a policeman that committed suicide. About 1% of people have such severe pain after the surgery and other vision issues they did not have before. They can become depressed and, like worst case, commit suicide. So there's 1%, doesn't sound like a lot, but to me, considering it's elective surgery, and we will talk about does it actually last. So, but again, a lot of people are happy with this. So this is a decision that you have to make for yourself. I have personally spoken to people that have shared with me how it really ruined their life. All their friends had great success, and for them, it was like the worst decision of their life. And you just never know, right? You don't know this ahead of time, and you can't reverse it. That's the problem. You cannot reverse it. So Um, Also, studies, what I found, studies, so when people get anonymous surveys after the surgery, which not all providers do, not everybody sends a survey. So some of the success data, we don't really know because very likely they're more likely to fill out an anonymous survey and give their real experiences versus talking to their eye surgeon, right? They might not say to the surgeon, it's like different when we see people face to face. So, and not everybody gets a survey, so we don't always know. And they also don't get follow-up long-term surveys. Usually do that, they do one after 3 months, and then that's about it. Um, so I want to talk about one other aspect of LASIK. So in most cases, LASIK for farsighted, nearsighted, or astigmatism will correct you for distance vision because that's what we need as humans to survive, right? But there's also a form of LASIK that I find very troublesome. And I know people that had it and really struggled. Some people love it, but I want to explain this quickly. Monovision correction. So with monovision correction, one eye will be corrected for distance and the other eye for near. And they usually do the dominant eye for distance and the non-dominant eye for near, which means the eye that's corrected for distance is not corrected to 20/20. It's a little undercorrected for that. And the other eye is corrected for near vision. Now, that might sound great because now you have vision at all distances. Because one thing I did not explain yet, diopters correct you only for one single distance. So if you're nearsighted, you get corrected for distance vision, right? And when you're younger, you can still look up close, but there will be a point where you get presbyopia and where things are more challenging. And now all of a sudden you're back in glasses. We'll talk about that mono. But monovision basically leaves one eye nearsighted and corrects the other side. So that basically, but here's what happens. You do not see distance object as clearly with monovision correction. And guess what? If we never use our two eyes together, like one eye does this, one eye does this, we will lose our depth perception and our binocular vision. I've seen that with so many people that had monovision correction, either with LASIK or with contacts. With contacts, you can stop that and change. With LASIK or lens replacement monovision correction, you cannot make any changes. And we had a student in my course who had that, and she struggled so much. Eventually, the brain gets used to everything, but she said she struggled really hard. Like nothing was ever perfectly clear, and she had trouble with like gauging distances. So unless you've done monovision correction with contacts for a while and you feel like really confident, I would never ever get LASIK or lens replacement surgery for monovision because your brain will struggle. It's an imbalance. Like we have 2 feet. It's like level one eye, like leg is shorter. You're basically imbalanced in everything in your life when the two eyes don't work together. So, but that's one little side note. So let's talk about side effects. They found that about 50% of people have severe dry eyes after the LASIK surgery and might need either temporary or for the rest of their lives, prescription eye drops because their dry eyes are so painful. About 46% of people reported halos or starbursts this night. I talked to several people that said they couldn't drive at night anymore after the surgery. So because the lights are so either halos or those starbursts, and it just makes night driving in the city basically impossible. Also 40, no, that 40, no, sorry, the halos were like over 50%. 46 of people experienced new visual issues, glare, halos after the surgery, something that didn't have before. Other visual disturbances, double vision can be common, migraines, extreme light sensitivity, eye strain, corneal infections are also a possible side effects. And then it's called ectasia. It's basically a corneal thinning that can lead to vision loss. So there's a lot of risks, but there's also for some people rewards, that feeling of like a quick fix. I have my life again. I know many people that are very happy, but let's also talk about some of the things that might not be so good. So the corneal tissue can also get thicker from the natural healing response, reducing the effectiveness. And I wanted to point out Dr. Morris Waxler, who is a retired FDA advisor who actually voted to approve LASIK, quickly changed his mind about it. And basically, he helped approve it in the 1990s. He's now one of the biggest critics. He actually runs a website called LASIKcomplications.com. He said we need to bring more information to the public. There's a draft. I can share a link for a draft paper. They said we want the FDA to amend its policies in recommendations about this procedure because too many things go wrong, and we need the public to be aware before they make that decision. And I talked to a neighbor who regrets the surgery, can't drive at night anymore, and she said she was never explained any of these risk factors. Um, the complication rate falls between, basically based on Dr. Morris Wexler's research, the complication rate actually falls between 10 and 30%. In one investigation of an FDA database by a reporter showed more than 700 complaints of severe pain described as worse than childbirth, or the eyeballs would stick to the eyelids almost every day. So I think this is your decision. I personally am not recommending LASIK, but it's your decision. But let's talk a little bit about how long it lasts. Because what I always say, there is no quick fix in health. It doesn't matter. We all want that magic pill, the solution, the quick fix. LASIK might work for you if you're very lucky, maybe 10, 12, 15 years. I know a lot of people that are back in glasses in 6 months later, a year later, 2 or 3 years later, because that also depends how severe your myopia or problem, your refractive error was, and it depends on your age. So presbyopia is something that's common. It doesn't mean you have to get it, but presbyopia is something that many people get in their 40s, 50s, and it basically affects the lens, and the lens grows some additional tissues and might, if you don't know what to do and you don't ignore and you don't do the natural vision habits, your lens will get a little bit more less able to flex and focus up close. So what happens is that eventually you get that correction for, let's say you had a really high one. I had a client who had a -11 uh, prior to the surgery. And by the way, many people don't even know what their prescription was before. So if you got LASIK, figure out what it was before. She had a -11, but now she never needed -11 to read. She would have probably needed a -8 to read. But now the -11 is engraved on her eyes, and now she needed +4 readers to get to the -11 plus 7 makes +4 makes 7. So she's like, am I farsighted now? I'm like, no, you're still nearsighted, but you never needed -11 for reading distance. That's diopters are only for one distance. So everybody I know, my former boss, everybody I know that had LASIK for nearsightedness, you will all be back in glasses. And most people will start with reading glasses for near vision, which what they had were able to do before the LASIK. They never needed anything for reading. Most people at a -11, yes, because it's too close. But most people that have like up to like a -5 could always read fine without glasses. But now with the LASIK, you will be in reading glasses because it's too much power with that contact lens that you can't remove from your eyes to focus up close. So depending on the severity of your refractive error, you will be back in reading glasses sooner than later. And eventually, and every single person I know that had LASIK, eventually, guess what? Your distance vision also goes back. So you're back and like, now you need glasses again. Now you need bifocals. But here's the thing. What I teach, I work with so many people that had LASIK, and it doesn't mean that you're doomed. So if you had LASIK, you notice a decline in your vision, you can still do something. You can still use methods like my natural vision method and improve your vision. You don't start from ground zero, but it doesn't mean you're doomed. And for those of you that are considering doing LASIK, I would really think hard about it, how important it is for you and how much it really affects your life, because here's the difference. LASIK doesn't last. What I teach is permanent vision improvement because you address the actual root cause of your blurry vision. LASIK, glasses, surgery, all these things are addressing a symptom, like why is your vision blurry? It doesn't affect the root cause. And while it sounds like this great thing, I can tell you this. I've seen too many complications. I've seen too many people being incredibly unhappy and also being back in glasses. And depending on when you do it, if you do it in your 20s, you might get more years out of it than if you do it in your 40s. But like I said, even a long time ago, a former colleague of mine was like 24, 25, and I saw him back in glasses 6 months later with really red eyes. He had extreme dry eyes, and he was not happy with the results. And I'm just telling you, I don't know, but I also see happy people. So it's your decision what you want to do. I hope this helped to educate you that LASIK, again, any diopters, which is the strength of a glass. I have some glasses I found on the beach here. Every lens that you get has a certain level of diopter, which is the power of the lens. And that power is different for different distances. If you ever started wearing reading glasses, you put them on and you look up, you have to take them down because you know it's blurry. So if you're nearsighted, you can pull in that extra power, even though you don't need it for reading. But as you get older, that will strain. That's never good for your eyes. Even eye doctors recommend if you are nearsighted, you should never wear your distance glasses on the computer ever, because that will actually ruin your vision faster than anything else. But when you do LASIK, you have no option. You have that distance vision in your eyes without the chance of taking glasses off or removing contacts or getting contacts for computer vision distance instead. So that's my 2 cents. I would also love to invite you. We will put all the links into the show notes. I would also love to invite you to a masterclass that I'm teaching on this Friday, May 30th. If you watch live at 12 p.m. Pacific, I will put the link into the chat so that you can register for that. Let me actually find the link. And I would love to see you there, because we will also talk about how you can improve your vision after LASIK, because I've done this with many clients. So you're not doomed. I want you to know that there is definitely help for you and you don't have to despair. That's it. Let me look if there's any questions. I'm happy to answer them from the best of my knowledge. I'm not an eye doctor, but I also would really think about if you have LASIK, you really you want to consider, ask your eye doctor all the questions. What are the potential risks? What are the outcomes? Because, at the end of the day, if you Google and you look at sites that promote LASIK, they will never really talk about, they say, well, 90% of people have results. I'm like, that still leaves 10% of people, 10 out of 100, not getting the result they want. That's like a pretty high, for me, that's a really high risk that I might not want to take, especially since you can't reverse it. And now you're stuck with this. Yeah, I see somebody on YouTube. I would not have it. Yeah, I have the worst dry eyes ever and migraines. Please think twice. Does nobody want me? Okay, tidbits. Thank you for sharing that, because I obviously didn't have LASIK. You're now so light sensitive. I want you to know, though, come to my class, because you will be able to make improvements. We had people, we get rid of that. I actually worked with a client who had to take prescription eye drops 3 times a day after the LASIK. And we slowly, very slowly, weaned her off. She doesn't need the eye drops anymore. But we did it very slowly and carefully, because you want to make sure your cornea, you don't want to get corneal scratches. But when we address the root cause, we can get in almost all cases, we can get the eyes to lubricate naturally and reverse the dry eyes and the light sensitivity. So I want you to know there's hope if you had LASIK, and if you're considering it, really, really get the information and make sure that that's really what you want, and also be aware if it doesn't go the way you want it to have, what's your plan B? Really, what's your plan B? So anyway, that's about it. So thank you so much, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'm all about natural vision improvement, things you can do, even if you had LASIK, if you had lens replacement surgeries, if you already had eye diseases or have eye diseases. We've seen incredible changes with natural methods. There's never a quick fix. I want to tell you, there is no quick fix in health. And once you understand that you know it's up to you. Doesn't matter it's about how strong you are, how good your balance is, how able are you how mobile are you, all these things. As we get older, it's up to you guys. And we have for way too long put the power in the hands of doctors. At the end of the day, they don't care about you as much as you do, right? It's like, empower yourself and know that healthy living is a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual experience. And every day you make choices that make your health, including your vision, either better or worse. All right. Thank you so much, YouTube, for watching, and subscribe, follow me, and share this channel with anybody else who could benefit. And come to my free masterclass, See Clearly Without Glass or Surgery, on this Friday, May 30th, 2025 at 12 p.m. Pacific. Register. I'm sharing the biggest 5 myths And we also, and I'm not talking about LASIK as a myth, but I'm just also giving you ideas of what you can do with LASIK. So thank you so much, and I see you guys soon.